All right, let's talk about what people are really interested in. How about the Lakers? How about the guy who's still the face of the league, LeBron bleeping James? So he will play next year at what would he be, 41 in year 23.
Insane.
It's pretty insane. You know, because you stuck around. Listen, 14 years for you, that's a
Yeah.
long time. That's
Yeah.
very impressive. That you should be very proud of 14
Mm-hmm.
years in that
Mm-hmm.
league.
Yep.
And and now he's 23 and I didn't see much slowdown last year. And he
No.
averaged what was it 24 8 and 8 last year. I mean, he made the
Yeah.
All-Star team and he deserved to be on the All-Star team. And
Mm-hmm.
still looks like a top 10 player, I would say. So
Yeah.
what do you see? What's the future for him?
The one thing I see that I saw, and as a student of the game and as a huge fan of LeBron, is he just ran out of gas in the playoffs. And I don't
Yeah.
think there's anything he can do moving forward to not run out of gas because I just think overall his body is running out of gas. I mean, this guy
Yeah.
has
No, I understand.
defied all odds, going into year 23 in his 40s, still playing at a high level, being a guard too. So being able to move around and still maneuver his body and get up above the rim and do everything he's done. But that's the one thing I did see in the playoffs this year is that his body just gave up. His
Mm.
body, he gave absolutely everything he had. And I think again at, 40 plus years old, and I know he's one of the hardest workers in the league in the offseason. I know he takes care of his body, but there's only so many miles a body is allowed to have. And his odometer is way
No.
past that meter. So I think it's going to be important. And, I think Rob came out and said it as soon as they were eliminated that we need to go out and get some people. One thing I do know that Luka's been working his ass off and he's a lot slimmer. I think
He
he
does
really,
look, it looked like he
yeah.
lost 15 pounds. Yep.
Well, I think there's things you can do in other cities, even if it's a big market, that you can't necessarily come to LA and do. And be lazy and be out of shape is
No.
one thing that the LA media will not let you live with. They'll,
No. Agreed.
so I think he's taken that to heart, and he's put the work in already, and he still has a full summer of getting better and getting in shape. So I think it's going to be big part of next season is going to be on his shoulders. We already know what Braun is going to give us, whether it's 23 a game next year or 24 again. But this team needs some help. I love Austin Reeves and I love some of the pieces they have, but they just don't have a constructed team that is really built for today's NBA. I think they need
Mm.
some length. I think they need some more athleticism. I think they need some more wing defense, and they need someone to protect the basket. So those
Mm.
are all important aspects, especially with the team when your two best players, if you're saying AD, LeBron, and maybe Austin Reeves, are your three best players, and none of those guys are known for defense. You got to have some kind of protection
Yeah.
behind them, and I feel like they lack that. So one thing I will give credit for is Rob has been able to pull rabbits out of hats
He has.
somehow,
Yeah.
some way, with the lack of money they have, with the lack of cap room they have. He's always, able to maneuver. So it'll be an interesting summer. I think there's going to be a lot of movement this summer overall. But I would love to see, as someone who grew up as a Laker fan, still a Laker fan, a fan of
Yeah.
LeBron, and want to see him go out the best way possible. It'll be an interesting offseason for this team because they definitely need to be able to insulate LeBron with some more talent.
So Matt, just I hear everything you say. There are flaws in this team, especially on the defensive end, and obviously they lost the rim protector in AD to Dallas. But I got to tell you, as a big basketball fan, you want to talk about must see TV was LeBron and Luka and Austin Reeves. It's just genius level ball movement between those three. It's like they're almost like, can you top this every night? I'll try one, you try one. And they're more into passing the basketball than scoring the basketball in a lot of ways. And it was really fun to watch, even though it's not going to contribute consistently to big wins, to championship runs.
Mhm.
But the IQ level of those three, because Austin Reeves really,
Oh man,
LeBron blesses him. LeBron believes in
yeah,
him. And
yeah.
so if you put those three on the floor at the same time, the ball movement is going to be spectacular.
Yeah, and the ability, to your point, obviously high IQ, great ball move, but three different guys that can go get you a bucket. There's not too many
Yeah.
teams on the perimeter that you can throw the
No,
ball. And
no.
they have Austin Reeves on a great deal. I'm not sure when his contract is expiring, but I know there's going to be a team, probably a bad team that's going to throw a truckload of money
Sure.
at him. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see if they keep him or they use him as an asset with an expiring contract to trade and bring in some more depth. But I'm a huge fan of Austin Reeves. But to your point, Yeah, those three out there are magicians, and it
They
is must
are.
watch TV. But to
Yeah.
your point, that it's only going to take you to a certain level. And
Yeah.
as someone who lives in LA and am around crazy delusional Laker fans all day, like nothing
All
is good
day.
enough but a championship. So right
Yeah.
now they don't have the recipe for that. But again, we'll see if this offseason if they can pick up some key
Yeah.
pieces that can
But
help that
to your
move.
point about LeBron running out of gas, I think Luca ran out of gas too because
Yes.
that they were just overmatched against the Timberwolves. And
Yeah.
then Oklahoma City, they overmatched the Timberwolves, so that you can just see. To talk about your torch being passed.
Yeah.
That's passed right
Yeah. There's
before your very eyes.
definitely level. I mean, this is a young Skip. I remember I came in the league in 2002, and it was an older, physical, rugged. There were vets. There were 37, 38, 39, 40. Some played, some didn't, but it was just an older, grown
Yeah,
man league. This
yeah,
is a young man's league now. The pace, the style of play, the thought process behind the playing, the skill
yeah.
set. It's a young man game. So if you're older player, your best players are older players, you better have a hell of a roster because it's definitely a young man's game.
Speaking of young men, the Lakers went with a very young head coach who had no head coaching experience. I was a big Darvin Ham fan. I think you were too. But how did you think JJ Redick fared this year?
I think first and foremost, I think Darvin got the raw end.
He did.
I was a fan of Darvin,
Yeah,
but then being here, you hear things and you hear
yeah.
about his styles and philosophies. And again, I didn't hear I hear it just like I'm sure you hear it.
I do.
But JJ, I got a chance to play with JJ, and JJ was one of those guys. We were around the same time. He was one of those guys that just one of those Duke players. Like I know if I meet JJ, I'm gonna hate him. I'm not gonna like him. And lo and behold,
Exactly.
we
Yeah.
played together in Orlando, and he's to this day one of my closest basketball friends. We still
Really?
communicate, and
Oh,
then yeah, and then
interesting.
we got a
Okay.
chance to play with each other with that Lob City Clipper team, and we became
Yeah.
even closer. I think JJ is a mad scientist. I think JJ is an evil genius. I think he's a
Yeah.
workaholic. I think he is a strategist at heart, a competitor, and I think it took a player like that to gain respect because I think the biggest thing now is relating to players. I think the X's and O's are still important to an extent, but we don't see these older coaches, these old school coaches. I thought Stan Van Gundy had his last chance in New Orleans. And when he went to New Orleans, because I played for Stan, I'm like, Stan is old school. We used to have fucking tape shoot arounds,
Yeah, I
knee
know.
pads, and like that stuff doesn't fly anymore. So these
Doesn't
old school
fly. Agreed.
principles and old
Yeah.
school ways don't work anymore. So you need someone that has these old school principles, such as JJ,
He
but the
does.
ability to
Yeah.
translate it to this younger game and to these younger players. And I think that's something that JJ has done a good job of. A hot seat, obviously one of the hottest seats in sports, but to win 50
It is.
games and have a huge trade the way they had in the middle of the
Yeah.
season, be able to, galvanize that and ride the momentum off that. I think JJ did a really good job. I think obviously he has more work to do. I sent him a message maybe 2 weeks ago. I was like, man, don't dwell on this all season. Enjoy some time with your family,
Yeah.
get out there and golf, take a breath. He also lost his house in the Palisades
He
fires
did.
when that situation happened. So he had a lot going on. But to answer your question, I'm a huge fan of JJ. I think JJ is the right man for the job. It's just on Rob's ability now to, put some more pieces that fit into that system. And I think JJ will do a good job of coaching them up.
Good to know. So, speaking of a younger man, and this is a tough one for me because I'm a big fan of Bronnie James just because I think he's a great kid and I love how he's handled everything. I'm not sure what his NBA ceiling is. What's your gut feeling at this point on how can he become a contributor at some point?
I think he can. And I think if you're looking at him because he's LeBron James' son in that kind of vein or that kind of light, you're going to be disappointed because LeBron is a once in a lifetime player. I
Yeah.
think Bronny is a 6'2", solid, very solid, and you could see his improvements over the season. I think he's going to be a very solid role player, and there's nothing wrong with being a very solid role player. I think he locks in on defense. I think he has a high IQ. I think he can pass the ball. I think he can score the ball, and I think he can jump. So I just think, being thrown, I thought he got thrown in the fire. When I say thrown in the fire, I mean thrown in the NBA a little younger, a little early. I thought he
Yep.
could have used another year at SC. I thought he could have came back for one more year, averaged
Agreed.
14 to
Yep.
16 points, and really got his feet under him as far as kind of understanding. this game, but hey, things happen. He was drafted. My whole thing with him is to be honest with you, Skip, it's less about what can he do on the court, and I just feel for the mental health of him because again, being a player and understanding this climate, and a former player, and then also being a father with kids who have
Yeah.
aspirations, it's such a nasty world now. And obviously, as grown men, we're paid to handle it, and you turn the other shoulder, be the bigger man. But for these young kids that are late teens, early 20s, it's such a nasty world out there, and it's hard to turn your head right or left, particularly in LA, and not hear something negative about you. So I'm glad that obviously who his dad is, and I'm sure he's insulating him with a good support system because the one thing I worry about, I think if he puts the work in, he's going to be a very solid role player that can play, 10, 15 years in this league. I just hope that, he's able to mentally handle
Yeah.
this grind because it's nasty out here.